really. I mean, first of all, you know, we had a very modest budget, to be honest. You know, far more modest than our ambition, and also, of course, you know, it's not that easy. You can't just ring up Paul Simon and say, Paul, I'm going to be in New York on June 12th. I'll see you at 9. You know, so it was a kind of organizational car crash. Everybody was brilliant, but just trying to get people into one place. You'd be surprised how many of these contributions were filmed maybe in the last month. But we got there in the end, you know, and but they were also, you know, I'm making light of it a bit. There were just lovely moments, you know. There were those just gorgeous moments. You know, with the documentary, I'm always aware there's the film, and then there's kind of your life around the film, which in this case was a car crash in lots of respects. But amidst the car crash, there were these wonderful moments. You know, I spent, these are lovely things I like to name drop now, you know. This drives my wife mad, because these anecdotes will come out over the next few years, you know. Well, I had a lovely afternoon with Paul Simon. But, you know, I went to film with Paul Simon not knowing whether I was going to be in and out in 5 minutes, or I didn't know what to expect. And we just had the most lovely afternoon. There was no time, it was all just very relaxed. And, you know, there were just kind of mad experiences, lovely experience. I had a lovely day in New York with Run DMC, who anybody of a certain, you've never heard of him.
No.
Grandad. But on the morning I went to film with Darryl McDaniels, you know, and I had no direct contact. It was all through managers and stuff, all that rock and roll stuff. And on the morning in the hotel, I got a email from his manager, which was his rider. Rider, you know, this is what rock stars look for. And it was kind of like, you know, something like 24 tins of grapefruit Pellegrino. Anyway, you know, we arrived at the studio without any Pellegrino, which was never mentioned again. But he was the most joyous man, you know. Darryl McNichols came in and he was like, you know, all those little moments, you know, that day, just fantastic.
Yeah, but people like that being in the film offers it so much scope and scale, and, you know, the fact that you get a performance like that in amongst all of this, well, in amongst all the Irish language stuff, actually, you know, it really lifts the thing up to a different level, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the Irish thing was interesting, that you know, Paul wants to engage with the Irish language, you know, which was far more a part of him. At first I was a bit, I'm not sure about this kind of bilingual thing, but the language was very much part of his psyche. You know, he started writing poems in Irish, which I didn't know. And as some of you might have heard yesterday, it was announced for the next 3 years, he's going to be the professor of Irish poetry, and he's spending the next 3 years at all the universities across Ireland teaching. That's quite a big deal. And one of the things that he wants to do is immerse himself in Irish and bring it up to a level. But his Irish was brilliant, and that was very important too. Wow. And yeah, and I think there's also something about Paul. There's a song in this sung by Damien Rice called I Love It All. And he does, you know, he is such an enthusiast for life, you know. There's no kind of cultural snobbery in him. He loves everything, you know, and in a way I think the music kind of represents that cross-section of people, yeah. And, you know, and some of which, particularly say, the older Irish artists like Horslips and Jake Burns' Stiff Little Fingers and Van Morrison, who go way back, like they were kids together. And Van Morrison, of course, didn't disappoint, you know. Van Morrison arrived, he won't mind me saying this, he probably will. He arrived, the limo pulled up. Hi Van, how are you? I want to use the toilet. So I bring him down to the toilets. We were filming in the Lirici Theatre in Belfast. I bring him down to the toilets. This could be interesting. And he goes into the gents, and there's a young lady, unfortunately, cleaning the gents. God bless her. So we got her out. Anyway, it all worked out. There was no punchline. But there's a Paul Muldoon poem, I think.
Yeah.
Van Morrison in the toilets.
I must ask you about your relationship to the Irish language and some of the other work that you've done. So you've been almost as prolific as Paul this last couple of years in your documentary production.
Yeah, I mean, people say, I have. I mean, partly because I'm kind of insatiable curiosity. But sometimes people say, you know, the very prolific Alan Gilsenan, and I think, is that a jibe? Like, is that a kind of insult? You know, you do everything. And of course, I always reply, well, actually, it's my job. You know, if I was a plumber and I did 30 toilets in a month, people would say, good fella, he's working hard. But on a more serious level, you know, when something like this comes along,
yes,
it's very enticing. You know,
course, yeah.
for all the difficulties you encounter with any film, you know, there's just the joy of making and spending time.
Yeah.
And that's certainly my relationship with the Irish language is fraudulent, really. I've made 2 films that have come out in the last few months, and they're both bilingual. And in fact, one of them is trilingual.
Yes.
It's in Irish, English, and Greek. Only one of which I speak. So I don't know. Anyway, I spoofed my way through that.
Well, it's great to see films being made with some amount of Irish language in it.
Absolutely. And on a more serious note, as you well know, you know, there's been this extraordinary explosion of Irish language films that are really, you know, just being judged as films. And partly, I wonder, you know, it's a very exciting, you know, innovation from Screen Ireland and T.G. Cahir.
Yeah.
But partly, I wonder, does the fact that they're in Irish give them a kind of a freedom and independence? You know, that for so long, I think Irish cinema, you know, success was aping British or American cinema. And, you know, I always used to say that somebody like Almodovar in Spain, you know, if you said to Almodovar, you know, if Almodovar set off as a young filmmaker trying to make films like Americans, where would we be?
Yeah, we
and
would
somehow, this is just a tin pot theory of mine, the Irish language films, because they're in the Irish language itself, have a liberty to be unique. And, you know, it's just a joy. I know you've something showing here, but it's just a joy to see them find their place internationally on their own terms as good films.
Yeah, I mean, we've 3 films that use the Irish language in them, and some short films as well, with 3 feature-length films in the program this year, which just shows how much of them are out there. But you're right, months ago we did a big podcast where we were trying to get to the bottom of that that question, like what's behind the rise of Irish language film? And it's not, it is in a sense, it's Screen Ireland and T.T. Cahir and the BAA putting money behind it, but people are responding to that and making things which do feel different. And there's a certain sense of a cultural moment coming from it.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely. And a changing relationship with the Irish language, particularly among younger people.
Yeah.
You know, the people my generation, you know, we went to, you know, foolishly, but Irish, when we were in school, was a kind of burden.
Yeah.
You know, it was everything that was old, and you know, and I think that's changed for the best.
Yeah.
And there's an extraordinary appetite now.
Yes, yeah. I heard someone ask someone else the other day if they spoke Irish, and they said, "Look, only school Irish," you know, which is a type of Irish that you don't want to use.
Well, it's a type I speak very well.
Yeah. So you were in Cork yesterday?
Yeah, the film had its premiere at the Cork Film Festival last night, and was seemingly a lovely response. I mean, you only hear the lovely response. But no, I think, you know, and actually most importantly, Paul hadn't seen it before last night.
Yes.
Which is kind of slightly high-risk strategy for any filmmaker. But Paul kind of said, I want to see it in the cinema. You know, I don't want you to be sending me a link. And thankfully, you know, he was very moved and delighted with it. Which in a way, as a filmmaker, you know, you have to take an audience reaction, good, bad, and different. You know, but when you make a film, particularly something intimate like this, or other films I've done with artists, you know, you want to believe, because it is a collaboration. This was very much a collaboration, and you want to believe that journey, you know, that trust that you've built up that you'd honoured that trust,
Mm.
that you'd honoured that person's work and life.
Yes.
And, you know, in a way, you know, without being too pompous, when you make a documentary about somebody as, you know, as wonderful as Paul Muldoon or other people I've worked with, you know, Liam Clancy or Tom Murphy or Sean Scully, you know, you also want to honour their work.
Of course.
And do justice to it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the biggest thing for me last night was Paul being happy.
Well, I think you really have honoured his work. You've made something which is very reflective of his big journey. But what's next for this film's journey after tonight?
Well, I don't know. If you'd asked me a week ago what's next, I'd say, well, finish the bloody thing. So we're kind of in a bit of shock
Right.
that we're actually finished, sort of.
Will it get a broadcast date?
Yeah, it's been broadcast by both the BBC and TG4 over the Christmas.
Brilliant.
But it will also kind of embark on a festival journey. And of course there's, you know, there's a real appetite for Paul, so I think particularly in the States there'll be a lot of screenings and various things that are kind of only emerging now.
Brilliant. Well,
So we get a few outings.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, we wish you the best of luck with it all.
Yeah, and thank you. And congratulations on the festival.
Thank you. Thank you.
I sense from afar it's been a huge success.
Well, thank you very much. But look, it's only as good as the films that are in it. So, great podcast.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.